Senator Xenophon.
Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. I won't go over old ground in terms of summing up this debate for the motion, but I want to make this clear to my colleagues. Mark my words, if this vote goes down, I'll be talking about it again in the very next sitting week after the break. There will be another motion. This issue won't go away. It won't go away. Just wanted to thank and refer to my colleagues' contributions. In relation to Senator Milne, thank you for your support, and thank you for the compassion that you showed to Jeanette Lang yesterday, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm also grateful for Senator Evans's contribution that the Leader of the Government in the Senate spoke on this motion today, and he said a number of things where I think it could be said that the language of the government in relation to this whole issue has shifted in the last week. Last week it was about, we've got a Henry tax review, we're not going to look at this, and that was it basically, and I don't take issue with that in terms of the government's entitled to go down that path. But I think that there is a shift in language on the part of the government. There is genuine concern about what is going on in the Church of Scientology and whether the laws of this nation are adequate to protect those people who are victims of the Church of Scientology, those who have escaped from the Church of Scientology, and those who still are in it. I know the government says, and as does Senator Abetz, and I'll refer to his contribution in more detail in a moment, that there's a consistency, that they both opposed a motion on the exclusive brethren and now a motion that relates to the Church of Scientology. But sometimes you can be badly consistent if you're consistent for the wrong reasons. Senator Evans says we should wisely use the Senate committee process so we can look at issues of public policy and public administration and matters in the public interest. I think that fairly summarises Senator Evans's position. Surely, Madam Acting Deputy President, it is in the public interest to look at these allegations in the context of whether the laws of this nation are adequate to protect people in cases of horrendous abuses of their human rights, to protect people where they have become destitute because they have worked years and years and years for an organisation for a pittance. And surely it is in the public interest to look at whether our consumer protection laws can afford protection in relation to these serious allegations where people have lost everything. Now, I know we've had inquiries into Australia Post about occupational health and safety matters there. The fact that it is a statutory body, to me, does not mean that we should not have an inquiry here in relation to Scientology, because it is still a separate organisation. There were specific allegations relating to a distinct entity, and the Senate thought it should go down that path, and that related to issues of occupational health and safety. The matters raised here are much more serious, I believe. Now, I also want to comment on what Senator Evans says, that we're not a court of law. That's right, that's true. It's axiomatic. We're not a court of law. And we're not here to make judgments of guilt or innocence. But if a Senate inquiry heard evidence about alleged criminal conduct, or conduct that may not be criminal under our current criminal laws, but begs the question whether firstly laws are being adequately enforced, whether there ought to be some fundamental law reform, then surely they are matters in the public interest. It is not for a Senate committee to make findings, I believe. If I can say that slightly differently, it's not for us to make findings of guilt or innocence. That's not our job. But if allegations are brought forward, it begs the question whether our laws are adequate. And if they are not adequate, we ought to look at law reform. That's what we should be doing here. Now, it's not just about allegations of criminal behaviour, but about allegations of unconscionable behaviour that are not covered by our laws, and that should be an issue for this inquiry to look at, about psychological harm. This is a serious public policy issue. And if I can just implore my colleagues, and I know what the position of the government and the opposition is, to think of it in these terms. If we have an inquiry we will hear from a number of victims of the Church of Scientology. That might take a day or two of hearings. We will hear from the Church of Scientology, no doubt, because they've been outspoken and they had a right of reply, which they exercised in terms of the comments that I made about that organisation a number of months ago. And that's the fair thing to do, the right thing to do. And if the Church of Scientology says, we don't do these sorts of things, we think it's wrong and outrageous, then surely they will not have a problem in our laws being changed to protect people about the circumstances, about the allegations that have been complained of. But I think that the language of the government has changed in relation to this, and I undertake here and now to engage with Senator Evans and other members of the government to see if there is a way forward so that these legitimate grievances can be dealt with, so that people have a voice, people can actually get some justice. Before I comment on Senator Betts's contribution, it's interesting that this morning how the Church of Scientology treats this place, treats the laws of this nation. They have a separate court system which strikes terror into the heart of anyone who is a member of the Church of Scientology. I spoke to a woman recently that was dragged before a court, a so-called court process, for days and days and days and days, being a kangaroo court that is set up under the rules of the Church of Scientology. It's interesting today that there were a couple of goons from the Church of Scientology, as I understand it. They were busy taking photographs of people that were at the very peaceful, very civil meeting of members, former members, rather, of the Church of Scientology, and they were busy there taking photos, quite happy, I think, to take photos of members of Parliament as well. These people think they're above the law, and they are not. In relation to Senator Betts, and again, I am grateful for Senator Betts's time yesterday and the genuine and sincere way that he met with and discussed the concerns of former members, of Liz and James Anderson and Jeanette Lang. Very appreciative of that. And Senator Betts is right. You can have goodwill on an issue. There are different ways of approaching it. And I'm glad that he'll be seeking for the Fair Work Ombudsman to look at these matters and calling on him to do so and to take up in estimates. But I suggest to Senator Betts that current laws are not adequate when you deal with this organisation, because if you speak out, if you make a complaint, you are cut off from your family. You are cut off from every support mechanism that you know. You are left completely alone, and that begs some big issues and big public policy questions. But again, I am grateful for Senator Betts taking this up and asking for the Fair Work Ombudsman to do so, and I congratulate him for doing so. In terms of tax issues raised by Senator Betts, again, I appreciate the context in which Senator Betts raised these matters. They were raised in good faith and with goodwill, and I do appreciate that. But in terms of the whole issue of taxation law, our current laws are such that following that High Court decision back in 1983, and former Senator Murphy, Justice Murphy's decision was quite obvious in terms of the way it went, the path it went down, to say that you basically can get these tax benefits. We don't care what the norms are, what you believe in, that's it. And I think that we need to look at the UK's public benefit test. Senator Betts raised the issue of he said, she said, particularly in relation to the issue of coerced abortions, and I appreciate his genuine and passionate views in relation to this. My views are different. I believe that current abortion laws should stay as they are, particularly in my home state. I believe in that woman's right, in the issue of a woman's right to choose, but I also believe it should be a true choice, a free choice. And what we've heard about this organisation is that it isn't. And I think it was quite chilling, the interview that Tommy Davis, spokesperson for the Church of Scientology in Los Angeles, told Four Corners that if you're in the C organisation, the Sea Org, their elite organisation, that you cannot have children. Quite chilling the way he said that. You cannot have children. And how do they affect that? They put incredible pressure on women to have an abortion and on their partners. You lose everything if you have a child, if you are in the Sea Org and indeed in other parts of Scientology.